Well, Julie, welcome to our Connect interview. Thank you so much for staying up until 11 o'clock at night in
it's a pleasure.
Australia to talk to me today, and for the audience, for those listening. But Julie and I have a bit of a history, and I'm going to start there, Julie.
Great.
So I've known Julie from just online through her artwork for years. Actually, Julie, when did you said you had to have started at least 2011 because you said you were in the first CP Treasures. So
right.
you found us pretty early.
Yeah.
So I knew Julie in that way, and then I'm gonna have to figure out how to make this long story super short. I was in New Orleans to leave on a workshop cruise and got there a few days early, met a guy in a hotel lobby from Australia the first day. And it was one of those things where we just clicked and we're like, oh, I like you. And we spent the next 2 days together as much as we could. And then off he went. He was traveling alone from Australia in the US. And then we just sort of kept in loose contact on Facebook for a couple of years. And then he sent me a birthday message saying that he wanted to let me know that he had pancreatic cancer and he didn't want to just drop out of my life without me and leave me wondering what had happened to him. So he was from Perth, and oh wow, I wasn't expecting to get and I thought of Julie because I knew Julie was in Perth, and I thought I really want to try to see him before he leaves us. And so I emailed Julie and said, Julie, I would love to come to Australia, and told her the circumstances, but it was so expensive. Like it was going to be $2,300 on the flight because I needed to do it quickly, you know. And I said, do you think maybe you could set up a workshop for me in Perth, and that would help cover my costs? And like this woman, in a matter of like 2 hours, wrote back and said, oh yes, yes, you can have a workshop, and not only that, I'll get it all going, and you can have it in my studio where she is right now, by the way, and you can stay with me, and this will be wonderful. And I mean, like literally in a week, she didn't have one workshop, she had two weekends back to back full. We had like 8 to 10 people in that studio. I was able to see Warren and spend 2 lovely days in St. Margaret. What's it called? Margaret
River. Margaret River.
Absolutely the most beautiful area in Australia. And had this wonderful time with Julie and her husband Matt and her children. And they are amazing hosts. And by the time I got home, I knew it was only like a week or so later that he passed. So it was just a miraculous. And that is how I owe Julie big time.
It was such a pleasure.
Yeah, we had a good time, didn't we?
Yeah, we really did.
Yeah. All right. So that is how I owe Julie. And now I'm going to share the screen so that we can focus on Julie. And Julie, here is everybody seeing, I assume? Julie, you're seeing this, of course.
I'm seeing it, yes.
Okay. And is there an order? I have not looked because I wanted to be as sort of fresh. Is there an order? Are the bottom ones?
Yes. The bottom ones are the older ones, even starting at art school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you did, that's interesting. So I was going to ask you before even we start looking at this, before we look at art school, was there anyone in your family that has like, do you have art genes in your family?
Yes, I do. And they're from my Polish side. Oh. So from my father, yes. And there's a few artists on the Podstolski side.
Okay.
Yeah, but so none at all from my English side.
So you were, yeah, I guess maybe you should. So you're kind of an interesting, so you're Polish and English, and you grew up in New Zealand, but now you're in Australia. You're like a kind of a whole British or like you're about everything you can be, except maybe Irish.
And not Japanese.
Or Parisian. Yeah, okay. So, but you've lived in Australia forever and ever now, long time.
Yes, since 1982. So I went to art school in Christchurch in New Zealand called the University of Canterbury. And yeah, isn't that funny? That whole wall is my final submission. So
What?
you can, yeah, that whole wall, that's my third year submission. So you can see one photorealistic piece in there, the laughing clowns, but photorealism didn't go down well at all. So I ended up sort of doing these big kind of abstract expressionist collages and things. And that's how I passed, how I, yeah, got my degree.
So, because I mean, honestly, Julie, I don't know if it was about the same time or not, but I wished I could go to an art class. I would watch the art students walk to the art building in college, but they were cool and I wasn't. They were into splashing and I was into drawing, little
Yeah.
delicate. And you had the nerve to go anyway. That's amazing.
Well, I think it helps to be really young. So I went straight out of school, and I think I don't know that I could, I really don't know that I could do it now. But I think when you're young, you're very pliable and good at following instructions and things.
And you didn't mind that you had to, well, I mean, did you want to do clowns versus?
Oh yeah, I've always had a thing for laughing clowns, and that's oil paint because I majored in painting. But it was actually pretty good to go out of my comfort zone and have to do these great big sort of abstract things. And also I learned how to stretch, actually make the wooden frames and stretch canvas and all that. So I was, yeah, right out of my comfort zone. You can see there's a lot of collage there too. So
Right.
I did lots of collage, and I had to do life drawing once a week. I really didn't like life drawing because I didn't like the nude. I never did. I always liked figures covered with material. So, this revealing, concealing thing.
Mhm.
But the actual nude, I've always found so boring that I'm actually quite bad. And I'm not good at it. I'm not good. I'm not really interested in the muscles and things underneath and the bones underneath the skin.
You want the
Yes.
fabric.
Yeah, I like the fabric. That's
Yeah,
right.
I hear you. The fabric really is beautiful, but fabric on its own, so interesting. Fabric on its own is usually kind of lifeless. It needs the body.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's right.
Okay. So, so then we have a Christchurch cow.
Yes, this was oils. This was the year before, so that was my second year of art school. So that was when I was like 20. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was doing.
You were very talented from the start.
Oh,
wow.
But I was I got kind of average passes, only average.
Well, that's because of the year. That's because of the era.
It wasn't fashionable.
Right.
Abstract expressionism was in at that time.
Okay, so now there's a huge gap, a really big jump in these 28 years from the Canterbury School of Art to these Michael. Now I'm going to let people know that these are Michael, they're not geisha. Michael are geisha in training, and the more beautiful, Japanese geisha that you see are actually Michael, right?
Yes. So back then, when I was, that's right. I thought I should explain why I changed to colored pencil, shouldn't I? Because I was an oil painter for several years. And then what happened was in 1994, I had my third child. And when she was a baby, I still wanted to keep doing art, but I'd start she'd go down for a sleep, Lucy, go down for a little sleep. And then, I'd sort of get out my oils and start messing around with my palette. And before I knew it, she'd be crying or whatever, and I wouldn't even get to start. So I thought to myself, I'm going to go crazy. I really need to practice art somehow. And I just had the idea to try colored pencils. And I didn't know I didn't have, if there was internet then, I didn't have it. 1994 this is. So I didn't know that other people around the world were using colored pencils. I had no idea. So I just thought, I'm going to go and buy some colored pencils. And so for a long time, for several years, I just worked in a vacuum until somehow I found, well, many years later, I found you and I found other color pencil artists. But in the early 2000s, this is really typical of sort of early 2000s work, when I was doing a lot of detail. So a lot of these early works are quite large. And
you'll have to tell us why.
Oh, yes.
Michael.
Yes.
You're in Australia.
Yes. My husband started doing business in Japan. And this was in 2000. Well, I went to Japan the first time in 2003. And I sort of went kicking and screaming. I didn't want to go because we were right in the middle of SARS at that time. So think back and think of another thing like this pandemic. It was SARS. But anyway, so I was really nervous about going. And also I was afraid of making a fool of myself, because we weren't just going as tourists. We were going to dinner with other business people. And I was just so nervous that I was a pain in the neck. I can remember sort of going, I don't want to be here. And then only about the second day, there was a meeting in the boardroom, lots of people, including wives, because several shareholders went, including wives. And I just thought, God, this is so boring. And I excused myself and went out for a walk and just walked around the neighborhood. And then it was like, oh, wow, this place is really interesting. And I just started seeing it in a new way. But then, even better, that was in Kurashiki. But then we were taken to Kyoto, all of us, just for 2 days. But while we're in Kyoto, I saw a Maiko with a customer and grabbed my camera. I'd read Memoirs of a Geisha not that long before, and I couldn't believe that I was seeing a real Maiko. So I took a couple of photos, and then when I got back to Australia, I decided I want to draw this. And I thought, no one will be interested. I'll never be able to sell them, but I just have to draw this. And anyway, that became then, I became
a series. It became a whole series.
It became years and years of a series. Yes,
right.
That's
so
right.
Japan, not just Michael, but Japan.
Yes.
It was quite a progression. But so you actually got this? I mean, it's so rare to get. Such a lovely photo.
Well, no, it's not. Well, the thing is, you see, I've been to Japan 19 times, and every time I've gone to Kyoto, and I have stood around on street corners and for hours and hours and hours, and I got heaps and heaps of material. Every trip, I got a lot of material. So if you're prepared to be patient and you learn where to go, you can find them. Yes.
Well, you're Michael. See, because this is actually, I love this picture because this shows what it's really like. Now, I have been to Kyoto maybe 4 times, and I have only seen Michael once out of those 4 times. I mean, we just never saw them. And then when we did see them, this is what you really see are all the people with the cameras.
That's
trying to get pictures of Mike. It's just amazing. But anyway,
so
all right.
So I called that one surprise with an exclamation, because it's like they go around the corner and then kavoom, there's this wall of photographers.
Right. Now, this is what are you working on at this point? What paper?
It was an Italian paper. It was a printmaking paper called it was Pescia, I think. Pescia. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but that's how you spell it. Pescia, by a company called Magnani, Magnani. and I was using that. And then the year that you came to Perth, which was 2015, suddenly I couldn't get that paper anymore because they just stopped making it. In fact, I think it was floods. Floods in Italy caused the company to close, at least temporarily. And I just couldn't get the paper. So I went into a crisis mode because I'm not the sort of person that likes trying all different papers. I'd used that one for years. But anyway, then I found a new paper. And so ever since then, I've been using a watercolor paper, which is French. It's Arches Aquarelle, made by Canson.
Right. Arches Aquarelle. I have, yes, I'm a little familiar with that. I haven't used it, but yes. It's a good sturdy paper.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
So let me see, we've got the Maiko and also Kyoto scenes.
Yes.
Gosh, I just love this one, but I love red so much. I love these lanterns. They're so wonderful.
I do too. Yeah. I adore them. Whereas Chinese lanterns don't do it for me. Yeah. They have to be Japanese.
Yeah, I agree. We're such snobs. Okay, so then you did, this, I think this maybe is my favorite of all your, the Japanese ones. I absolutely love this. I love now how close to the photo, Julie, was this?
I took out something quite essential to change the story. So it looks like there's this young, sprightly Maiko walking with an umbrella. The umbrella's pink, everything about her is young. Yeah. And then opposite that is this very old lady with a black umbrella, and she's hunched over. And it's almost like the passing of time or a metaphor about time. But in actual fact, what I took out was that in front of the old lady, there was actually a young woman that was bowing to her. And so the old lady was bowing back. And as soon as that had happened, the old lady stood up straight and marched on. She was as straight as could be. But I didn't want the back of somebody bowing. So she was an essential thing that I had to take out to make my.
That was brilliant. So brilliant. And it is.
I do a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I thought that's why I wanted to ask, because I knew that you could just go with your photos, because the street and everything, right? It's such a passage, literally, of time, right? It's just one of my favorites. And you were so kind to give me a print, which is hanging in my living room right now.
Wonderful. And that won a big award too. That won the Colored Pencil Society of America Explore This I think that was 2015 or 16. It was the best in show. So that was fantastic.
Yeah, it's just a fabulous piece. So we go from Maiko to a few Japanese scenes, mostly lanterns. And then suddenly we are in Paris just 2 years later. A year later, we're in Paris. How did that happen?
It happened because Alicia, my middle daughter, was doing an internship in Paris. And it was going to be Christmas. And Matthew and I just sort of spontaneously said, let's go to Paris and have Christmas with Alicia. And Emily, our oldest daughter, was in Finland. So we thought she can come across, which she did. She went across to Paris. And my youngest daughter is Lucy. So Matthew, Lucy, and we went to Paris for a whole month. And so I had lots and lots of time to explore Paris. So this is called Snow Showers, because it was a particularly cold, very cold Christmas. And I'd never seen Elizabeth Patterson's work when I did that, by the way. Elizabeth Patterson is a colored pencil artist who does work through car windscreens. That's,
I call them waterscapes.
Right.
It's like the rain on the windshield.
Yeah. Yes. And actually, I wrote to her once and said, I hope you don't think I copied you, because I'd never seen your work when I did that. And she said, of
Right.
course I'd never think that. But anyway.
So was this from the same trip?
Oh, no, I actually went to Paris. I can't remember how many times I've been to Paris now.
Okay.
It must have been, I don't know, 5 or 6 times
Okay.
over a few years. So that was, I think, a different trip.
Okay.
But
Is
I
that where
went,
you're
you see,
living?
what I like places that have a lot of elegance. So it seemed natural to go from Kyoto to Paris.
Mm, mm.
Yes.
Well, also history, maybe.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Right. You told me, so this one is at dusk, and when I was in Dublin a few years ago, before the pandemic, and I was taking pictures at dusk, and I said, oh, I think this might be my new favorite time to take pictures. And you messaged back, it's absolutely the best time.
It is.
This is
But it wasn't dusk. It was dawn.
so I was gonna say, but I remember you telling me
Oh,
that
right.
actually you got up at the crack of dawn, apparently even before dawn,
Yes,
and walked.
that's right. Because if it had been dusk, there would have been a lot of people. That's why it's so empty, because Paris is still asleep.
It's probably the only time.
Yes, that's right. The time that I really felt that I had Paris to myself, I could really feel the spirit of the place, was very early morning before it went crazy with tourists.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'd get up very early, practically every day. And in fact, if you've come from Australia, then your body clock enables you to get up extremely early.
Mhm.
And then the longer you're in Paris, the more you just sort of get onto French time, and then it's harder to get up early.
Right, right. So that's let's see, 2012, 2013, and then we have street art, because you
Mm,
had, oh, do you see
yes, yes,
art? Okay, all right.
it's up
Um,
on the screen.
All right, good. So yeah, this seems like a real, oops, sorry. This seems like a real radical turn all of a sudden. You take a lot of little alleys, don't you?
Yeah, I just, when I go walking with my camera, I don't know what I'm looking for, but I know when I find it. So I just found, well, I suppose also because I'd had to do some sort of abstract expressionist kind of work at art school, I really responded to an image like this. So there's just so many layers to this. On one hand, this beautiful sort of pasted, sad looking pretty girl, and then all this crazy stuff, all these layers, and I just love that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, this little motif of the family or in
Yeah.
bed or something that's repeated. Yeah, it's
Mm.
really, yeah, I can see where that would be really intriguing. Was that
And
fun?
then and also even, there's that um the touch of the Japanese lantern with, the red.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you did quite a few of these.
Yes, all through my art life, I've always been drawn to street art. So every now and then I'll do a street art drawing, and it's like because street art's so temporary, and
Yeah.
I'd like to make it permanent. But I do them very rarely, because it's only rarely that I come across something that I think, oh, that just touches me. And usually it has to be something very feminine
Mhm.
and poignant. So I don't like just ugly stuff.
Mhm.
It has to have a kind of faded beauty that, yes, that touches me. And I just love that. It just reminded me of something else that I'd learned in art school, because we had to study art history. So I learned about propaganda art, for instance, was it constructivist printmaking and stuff that was done in the early 20th century in Russia, for instance, or, countries that were communist, and they've had these sort of
Mhm.
posters with red and white and black and interesting type. And well, this just reminded me of that. And I also, when I first drew it, I thought, oh gosh, what a pity it's ripped. I would have loved to have drawn that if it wasn't, but I took a photo anyway. And then actually, I thought, actually, I really like that rip.
Mhm.
And the other funny thing is, you'd think, well, you can indulge in a bit of street art, but nobody would buy it. But in fact, the street art, it sells. People love it. Yeah. So that one never even made it to my French exhibition. It sold beforehand.
So, it's a perfect time actually before we go on to talk a
Mm,
little bit about your shows, because there's not a lot of, I don't know a lot of color pencil artists who have your solo shows one after another. I mean, that you've had
yes.
multiple shows. Tell us just, I might stop sharing for a minute so that we can just talk.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me a little bit about, tell everyone how successful you are.
Uh, look, all right. I'll start by saying I had exhibited a fair bit before I even started colored pencils. So I'd exhibit with my oils.
Okay.
And so I don't even know how many shows I've had, but I can't remember. Probably less than 20, but maybe around 20, something like that.
20 shows, 20 solo shows.
Probably.
So
Although when I say solo, I do like to exhibit with
okay.
my friend Robin Varpens, who does clay sculpture. So the last 3 in a row, and the next one also will have my work on the walls and Robin's sculpture, and the two go together so well. It makes such an interesting exhibition to have 2 and 3-dimensional work together.
Yeah. And the same sort of the same vibe. I mean, I've seen her work, and there's
Yes.
a sort of a more feminine,
Yeah.
yeah, but strength, that sort of vibe.
Yes.
So, and kind of quiet, but not, yeah, anyway, yeah, I can see where they work together well. But so you're not just successful, you're incredibly prolific. So before we talk about your shows, even, how many, how dedicated are you to this art business?
Well, I don't think of it as a business. I think of it as a calling, as if I was a nun or something like that. What I mean is, um, it's so much a part of me that I actually said this to my husband the other day. I don't know where I end and my art begins. It's like my art is me and I'm my art. And if I'm not doing art, I get depressed. So I have to do it. I have to do it for my mental health. But at the same time, if I do too much of it, that makes me miserable too. So I have to get a balance. So just the other day, I was thinking, I'm starting to drift towards feeling a bit down. And then I realized I just need to take a day off drawing. So I went and worked in the garden instead and felt a lot better and went back to my art, and that was fine. So it's just an integral part of my life. And it started right from when I was very young. And actually, I have got this memory. When I was about 5, every now and then, Mum used to have to take me to her office. She was a typist, and they must have been very nice in her office, because it must have been the school holidays or some time when there was no one to look after me. So I'd go into the office, and I can still remember very well. I'd be given paper, waste paper and pens and things, and I'd be drawing away. And then I remember going up to the nice people in Mum's office and saying, you wouldn't think someone as young as me could do something like this, would you? I was very precocious. And because they were such nice people, they go, oh no, are you only 5 or whatever? No, that's really great. But isn't it funny that I can still remember doing that? Yeah. So I had a real sense of, but I must have done as myself as an artist from very young age.
Yeah, and so you work, I mean, you work every day,
I
unless you take a
pretty
day
much
off.
do. Yes.
So you,
And well, the other thing is, Anne, I do also, I really love photography. And so I take photos, and taking photos is a huge part of it. So, walking with my camera, I get so much pleasure from that. And just walking and looking, just observing the world. And again, not knowing particularly what I'm looking for, but then something grabs me and I find it. And then I work from my photos. So I don't draw from life anymore. And I used to. And I've kind of let that go, which I feel guilty about on one hand, but on the other hand, I don't feel any wish to actually sit down and try drawing something with a sketchbook.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
because you know what you're doing actually to me. So when I think of you, Julie, one of the first things I think of is walking. You're a walker. Like you,
Yes.
it's just part of your, I mean, your body even looks like you're a walking body, you know?
Yeah.
I'm a sitting body. You're a walking body. And you and Matt, at least when I was there, it seemed like you quite frequently stop at sort of mid-morning to go to walk to the cafe for a cappuccino.
Every day.
That's what I thought. Yeah, and so that gets you out and you know, away from the art. So you're not just holed up. Also, you and Matt are share the room. You know, he's working where you're working.
That's
I
right.
feel like you built a beautiful life that incorporates everything about you. Your photography, your walking, your relationship, and your art is all just so perfectly, to me, feels very balanced. And a
Thank you.
cappuccino every day must keep most people happy.
Yes, I agree.
Especially if there's a little sweet that goes along with that cappuccino.
Yes, too often there is.
Okay. All right. So, gosh, I've lost. Oh, yeah. So shows. Could you just tell us how that started, or what, or how often you have them? Just talk about the shows a little bit.
Oh, well, gosh, when did they start? Actually, I had my first show in 1981. So that's how long ago. And so now I have one about every 2 years.
Okay.
And I have to think
they were in one gallery and then something happened. Did you switch?
Yeah, I've been with a few dealer galleries over the years, but lots of them have closed down over the years in Perth. And I decided that I like to run my own show. So now I actually rent a gallery space in Fremantle. It's yeah, and just run my own show. So I pay for the rent and I man the show, but it means, so I work very hard, but it also means that I don't have to lose commission for every piece that I sell.
Wow. But what about marketing? I mean,
I'm pretty good at it. Well, you see, you build up a client list, and gosh, I use all sorts of social media to help with that. But also I've got clients from years ago, customers, and I pay for advertising. So I will actually spend quite a lot of my budget advertising. So it's not just, old buyers and friends.
right.
I need to get new people coming every time. So that's where the advertising comes in.
Where do you advertise? Like
in the local papers.
In the paper?
No, the local newspapers. I used to, sometimes I've advertised in art magazines, but actually I don't think I've ever had much success from art magazines. They're very expensive. I mean, the Australian ones, I don't mean yours. I mean, they're very expensive over here. And a lot of them, I think, are just sort of, it's a vanity thing,
Right.
Yeah, rather than anything that's going to give me a reward.
Right. But and also there's two of you, so you're both marketing, right? So you and then you're a sculpt.
Yes, Robin. Yeah.
You both bring in people, so that's a really smart thing.
Yes, that's right.
And you sell out.
No, I've got to be honest. I've never had a sellout show ever. Yet.
You come close, don't you?
Well, sometimes half, sometimes 3/4.
But I've never is very close.
Okay, 3/4 is very good, but it's between half and 3/4, I would say, would be normal.
I mean, that is like remarkable, right?
Yeah, look, but I don't do commissions. And I think if you do commissions, you can almost guarantee that the person that you do the commission for will pay. So
That's
that,
true.
but then you're doing something you might not want to be doing.
Right.
I do a different thing. I do only what I want to do, but then will other people like it? Will other people want to buy it? In a way, it's riskier.
Way riskier. Way.
Mm.
That's why I mean, to sell, I've known a few artists, color pencil artists who have shows, and I've never heard of anybody selling half of everything. Never. I mean,
Right.
outside of you. I knew that you did really well at the shows, which is why I asked, because I just want to give everybody hope. All right. So it can't happen. And you know what? It's interesting, Julie. You know how they say, all the gurus say, be yourself, be yourself, be true to yourself.
Yeah.
That's how you get what that's how you move on in the world. But it's very hard, especially as an artist. It's extremely hard to say, okay, I'm just going to draw what I like. I mean, what if what I like to draw is a pair of glasses on a table? I mean, really, are people going to buy that? You had the courage and also the life ability to be able to draw what you want.
Yeah, but I do also, in the back of my mind, I think about what people might like. So for instance, I can draw Paris because I know or Venice. Oh,
there we go.
Okay, you're there. Because I know that lots of people here where I live, they go to Paris and they go to Venice. If I decided to draw, I don't know, Krakow, for instance, or Warsaw, well, how many people would go there? Maybe a few, but so I do have to think also about what people might like.
Right. Well, and of course that makes sense, but within that, you can choose, to draw what you want to draw.
Yeah.
I have to say, I clicked on this sort of randomly, but this is also one of my top 5 favorites of yours. Oh my gosh, just the glow on their heads alone puts me, into another realm. I love this one so much. Oh my gosh.
I love it too. And in fact, a rare thing happened that somebody bought it just from seeing it on the internet. And that doesn't happen for me very often. It was in my exhibition, but it went into the exhibition. This is my last year's exhibition on Italy. It went in with a red dot on it because it had already been bought by someone in Adelaide who had only seen it on a screen.
Wow.
So that is rare for me.
Yeah. Well, that's hard to buy, a piece of artwork. Would you mind telling us something like this? Oh, how big is it and roughly, and then what it sells for?
Well, I've got it. I've actually, because I heard you ask how big something was on another one, I've put the sizes on. Yeah. So you can see 14.3 by 12.2 inches.
Okay. So it's not a massive piece. It's not a small piece. It's sort of in that middle range.
Yeah. And I don't remember how much it was, but I think it was 3,000.
Okay. That's nice. It's not ridiculous. It's not over the top, but it's also a nice little amount for that size.
Look, I don't sell for huge amounts. So I sell, let me think. The smallest little picture might be 1,200, and I've sold and up to 4,500. But that's the 4,500. I don't do anything that big at the moment.
Okay.
So 3.5. 1,200 to 3.5. That would be my range.
Because you would rather sell.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. I don't want to bring them all home again.
Yeah. This one, somehow, Julie, I have missed this one. This is really gorgeous. And it looks a little different. It looks like you used a heavier touch. Is that true? Or am I just...
Yes. It has neo color underneath it. Yeah. But quite a few of them do. This one is in the collection of one of our hospitals in Perth. St. John of God. Yes. They've got a few of mine.
These are so...
In fact, come to think of it, they bought it for their hospice. So it's actually quite a beautiful one for a hospice, especially because I actually took the photo for that on All Souls Night. Yeah. So 2nd of November, that was All Souls Night 2018. Yeah. So it's nice that it's in a hospice.
So beautiful. And now what you I mean, one thing that you do that very few color pencil artists do, although a lot of this work isn't like that, but here, like this one for Fremantle, is that you
Oh,
just
yes.
purposely do blurry,
That's
like
right. Yeah.
try
Look,
that.
it's interesting because some people, when they come to my exhibition, see one like that with the swans, people can understand that. That's not a problem because there's something in focus.
Yeah.
So, but ones that are completely blurry, some people love them and some people are incredibly irritated by them. So if I get negative comments at my exhibition, it's always going to be about those ones. But I love them because to me they're so atmospheric.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to get, that's what I'm after, a dreamy kind of atmosphere.
Right.
And I don't want every little bit of detail. And some people get it and some people don't, which
Yeah.
is fine. Yes.
This is just a gorgeous one. And this is all blurry, but it's less all blurry, and you can still
Yes,
tell what it is, And
that's
how many
right.
people really like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can hear you, but wow, look at the water on this. Oh, that is so beautiful.
So that's one where where the background is just the land. The land is just colored pencil, but I wanted more sort of solidity of color in the water in the boat. So that's got neo color underneath.
Okay.
So when you come forward, there's more substance.
So the
Yes.
Neocolor, are you wetting Neocolor or wet?
No.
No, you're just putting it down and dry.
Yes, that's right. I put it down and what I like is Neocolor 2, which is the water soluble one.
Right.
And why I like it is because Neocolor 1, which is the permanent, what do you call it? The wax one, it's drier. Okay, the waxy one, the permanent one is dry,
Yeah.
but the watercolor one, even without water, it's more kind of lipsticky in a way.
It's creamy.
It's creamy, and the colored pencil loves to go over that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So do you put it on pretty thin, like you don't worry about filling it up, the tooth, you just kind of put it on real thin, but then the color
I do.
sort of like grabs it and
Yes, that's
sinks it in.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah, it's quite thin.
Okay, so before we we're running out of time, and I was thinking, I love this cat so much. You did quite a few cats. You just have the one here, but you had a
Yes.
cat period. Is that right? Or do you put
Yeah.
cats in between other pieces?
Well, yes, just if I come across a cat. Yeah, I did one last year, and yes, just every now and then, but the trouble is, they're politically incorrect if you're doing an exhibition full of birds. So my next exhibition is going to have lots of birds in it. So I'm sort of wary about putting a cat in as well.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, but that's life, isn't it? Life is full of contradictions, so that a person who loves little birds can also like cats.
So I have to tell you, I have personally never drawn a bird, but I am so taken by bird drawings. I cannot stop loving colored pencil bird drawings. I don't know what it is. They're just so adorable when you get to see them, like really look at them.
Yeah.
I don't have a fancy camera like you have, so I don't, get good pictures of things like this. I just love this so much. So this was during the pandemic when you're stuck at
Yes.
home and you couldn't go to Paris or Tokyo.
That's right. I had a lot of trouble with that too. At first, in fact, when COVID just started, so it was March 2020, we were just about to go to Italy, and we're looking forward to this trip, not just Italy, but Switzerland as well. And only 3 days before we were due to fly out, we had to cancel. Of course, we were the lucky ones because we were actually here. It would have been much worse to be trapped somewhere.
Okay.
Our borders closed, And for most of the last 2 years, not only could we not travel overseas, but we couldn't even travel interstate.
That's right.
Because WA became like an island within an island. So I had to come to terms with that and start to be able to find inspiration at home.
Mhm.
And somehow I did it, and birds really helped. So, by the way, I don't know if people can see, but there's actually a person in this picture as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
there is in the back here.
Yes, it's a person. You can see their jeans,
Right.
and that long, the sort of the horizontal thing is one of those big camera lenses. So there's this woman very, very out of focus walking with a big camera lens. So that's why the picture's actually called October Arrivals with an S, because not only do the rainbow bee eaters come in October, but the bird paparazzi photographers also come.
Is Australia like known for its birds?
Very much. Yeah.
Because it's like a stopping off place or a.
Yeah. Look, we've got wonderful birds, but I have never really discovered them until last year. So like these beautiful little, like this one beautiful bird on the top there.
This
that one, that's right. That is the purple-backed fairy red. I had no idea we had them here in Perth until I joined a Facebook bird group last year and found that they're right here. So that's when I had to buy a great big lens, which weighs an absolute ton. But with this big lens, a big zoom lens, I'm able to get good photos. And it's very hard to get good photos even with a great big lens, because these little birds move constantly. They're very, very tiny and very fast, and they move around deep in undergrowth. So it's actually really, one of the hardest things is not even drawing them, it's just getting the photo.
Right.
Yeah.
I have to say, I have this thing about bird feet in drawings. Like so often the bird is really nice, but then the feet just kind of fall apart. Have you noticed that? And
yes,
your feet are so lifelike. It's so good. But your background, how can I just ask you how like you attack this? Do you start in just the background, or do you start with the twigs, or how do you do something that complicated?
Well, I look at it for a long time and think, where am I going to begin? That's the truth. I never know where to begin either. It's sort of a bit like a jigsaw puzzle.
Right.
And then I just have to start somewhere. So I do start with the background.
The very the negative space. Yeah,
and I again, it's neo color in the background, but not on the bird. So that makes a distinction then between the bird and its background.
So can I ask you, like neo color doesn't, you don't have a sharp point like you do with the pencil.
Yeah, I do. I sharpen them. They fit. They fit into a pencil sharpener. So I do have a sharp background. I mean, a sharp neo color.
And then what pressure would you say you use? Like if a 5 is pushing as hard as you can and 1 is barely touching, where are you in there?
2.
So you're barely touching.
Yeah,
it's down color so readily,
Yeah, well, you see, you won't even see, there'll be no neo color showing in this. In anything I do, it's all underneath. It's all really just, it just changes the surface of the paper and makes it what I call very welcoming for the colored pencil. So everything you see is colored pencil, but even though you don't see the neo color, it's influenced the colored pencil.
Right. This background is just, I mean, I don't know. I love this background so much.
Yeah, well, I do too. Because you see, I see it as an abstraction. That's the thing. Yeah. So I see it a bit like, even, I know it's crazy to say, but Jackson Pollock, not the bird, but the chaos of the random shapes.
Yeah, but you know, like your choices of what to be blurry and what not are also just so wonderful. Like this doesn't look like it's that much further back than this, but they're way blurrier, you know. I mean, I just love, I'm sure you make those decisions as you're drawing, you know.
Yes, and I make the decisions also when I'm taking the photo, because I have the camera set on an aperture on a
Yeah.
very shallow depth of field.
Mhm.
Yeah. So if I could take the photo when everything's in focus, but that's the last thing that I want.
Yeah. So since we just have almost no time, there's only two. No, let me see. Is Julia recording from her studio? It would be interesting to see her workspace. Well,
Oh, I've got it there.
yeah, it's there, but right at the end, we'll still stop sharing the screen, and so you can see. So, whoops, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? Oh, there you are. Okay, so here's Julie. I mean, yeah, and this is her hallway, and my bedroom was right down there. But
Yeah,
anyway,
it was too, right behind
yeah.
that wall.
Is this is a new piece that you're working on?
And no, that was one that I did that was in my Italian exhibition. So that's actually, that photo was taken a year ago.
Oh, okay.
But I wanted to put it in here because I want to show that, well, I work on a draftsman's table, but I always finish off every piece on a painting easel and work from from a distance, working across the room. So I'll keep walking backwards and forwards, because it's no good if a work just looks lovely close up. It's got to work from across a gallery space or across a room. So that's why I work from this distance.
So how much of, so would you say this is just the very, very final tweaking stage only, or the
Not
last 20%, or?
good question. Probably the last 20%.
Okay.
Yeah. So and if something is difficult to resolve, I might have it on that easel for several days.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also I wanted to show this photo because you can see that the length of the pencil that I'm holding. I've got a pencil extender on a full length pencil. So people tend to think, I guess, that you use a pencil extender because it extends stubs of pencils. So you don't have to throw them out, but I like them on full length pencils, because then I use the pencil sort of almost like it's a paintbrush. Yeah.
I've seen you do that, and it's like so mind-blowing. If I back up here, if I recall, you are holding your arm in this, and then your brush is like,
Yeah.
not your brush, it's your pencil, but like this, so that
Yeah.
you really can't put any pressure on at all.
No, that's right.
Real soft.
Yeah. So that's the easel. In the photo next to it,
Okay.
where it says My Simple Studio, that's where most of it takes place.
Right.
And you see, the funny thing is, I see so many photos that people put up on Facebook or whatever of millions of pencils. There'll be, especially Jesse Lane, his workspace, he's got a room full of colored pencils.
Right.
Well, there's my colored pencils. It's just 100. I have 100 luminance pencils, and that's it.
I'm like,
So that's,
I have a few more, but I really only use the top drawer. I have like a 4-drawer thing. I really only use the top drawer, and there's 25 of them in there. So
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, so right behind Julie's head to the left, as we're looking at her, right there is her studio, really. I mean, this is it. She's quite simple. If you have any other questions, I'm going to, well, wait, before let's see. I did want to just make this one bigger because I personally love seagulls, probably growing up in Seattle, and seagulls everywhere. And I just love this, plus all the color. Like it's interesting to me that you take a basically a neutral bird and then pair it with something really colorful.
Right.
That's purposeful.
Yeah. I love seagulls.
Yeah.
And But the funny thing is, I took this photo in 2017, and I print my photos and I have them in an album because I don't actually like really looking at images on screen.
Right.
I like to have them in an album, and every time I'd look at that, I'd just turn the page, and it was only like, oh yeah, not interested, not as interested. And then only a couple of months ago, I suddenly thought, oh, I can see something in this. And yeah, so that happens actually quite a lot, that I'll take photos and it might be years later that I'll actually see some magic in them or potential.
Now I have to ask you another one, even though we're like basically out of time, but I have to ask you. So you go out, you take a bunch of pictures, and then you must look at them, and then you choose to print some of them, or you don't print everything you take?
No, I choose to print some.
And then you stick it in an album, and then that's your idea album. And
yes.
when you're ready to do another piece, you look through that.
Yeah, and I like to, and I use 4 pieces of paper.
Right.
To crop, just to play around. So rather than doing it on a screen, look, it's funny. Woody Allen's not politically correct. However, he does something that I thought that made me laugh. I saw that he, when he was editing, he'd be typing on this typewriter, and then he'd cut and paste. If he decided to change his mind, he'd cut and paste and put little bits of paper on, as opposed to using a computer. And I had to laugh at that because I thought, that's just like me, really, just using bits of paper to crop. And
it works. That's what I did. Is that when I first, that's how I first crop. Now I admit I crop on the computer, but it works. 4 pieces of paper and you can crop anything.
Yeah, and you can keep changing your mind, and you're not wrecking an image. Yeah, and I'm not that keen on screens, actually. That's the other thing. I don't like screens, so that's why. Yeah, that's another thing. Like in airport lounges and things, I can't stand screens. Or yes.
Except for TVs, because we know you and I are both watching Japanese TV shows, right?
We are. Yes, it's true.
Yeah. Well, it is. I knew that would fly by. It has. By. It was so quick. And the Padlet, I think everybody has a link to the Padlet. Because you can, drink in Julie's work. Also, Julie, we didn't even mention it. I'm supposed to be giving you time to plug your own thing. Julie has a blog, and it's a wonderful blog. We need to add that. Oh shoot, how are we gonna? Is it on the?
It is. I think it is. It's on there.
Oops, I didn't mean to do that.
On the photo of my face, there is the link to the blog.
Oh, right there. Okay, the WordPress. Julie
yes, that's right.
Julie writes as well as she draws. She's just a very talented person. So she really is very talented. And if you are ever lucky enough to have her and Nat as a hostess, you are going to be treated like a princess. You're just awesome.
Unless you're a male, then you'll be treated like a prince.
Yeah, well, okay, you're right. All right. Is Julie recording? Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Julie, for staying up until now, midnight. And I hope you get to sleep. And we need to do this again.
Oh, it was really fun. I loved it.
Appropriate time for you, Julie.
Oh, no, actually, it's been absolutely fine.
Okay.
I've really loved it. And thank you to everybody for coming on board.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Okay, all right. Bye, everybody. Goodbye, Julie.
Bye, Anne. Bye, everyone. Good night.